And some of those people are at the World Economic Forum. It just kicked off in Davos. This is an event, again, where billionaires and political leaders get together and they basically decide what our future is going to be. One of the big issues that came up before was climate change. This time, they have turned their attention to AI and this idea of globalization. And some of the things that were said may actually shock you. Let's get started with this first clip here. This is coming from the U.S. Commerce Department. Globalization has failed. This is coming from Secretary Lutnick at the WEF. Everyone, check out what he says.
Well, I think you should start at a much higher level. Okay? We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty.
So, first of all, other countries do put their workers first, for the most part. Their workers, a lot of the ones that are allies with the United States, their workers have universal health care. They have paid family leave. They don't have to pay all this money to go to the hospital and have a baby. If you look at a country like France, I mean, they even get like, I guess you would call it not a nanny, but a temporary babysitter, like after they have a child, at least I think for the first 9 months. So the other countries have put their workers first. It's this country that doesn't put the workers first. But I want everyone to pay attention to what is happening here, right? You see, they have been paying attention. They've been watching what is being said on social media and also, I think, in independent media, although they probably would never admit it. They are now starting to use our jargon. They're now starting to use the same rhetoric that you're hearing many of us say, which is that we need to focus on people right here and we need to build up this country and people can't afford the cost of living. So what I want to caution everyone about is that be very careful this sudden turn that you're seeing happening at the World Economic Forum, where they are starting to use our rhetoric, because this is my prediction. My prediction is that they are going to find a new way to manufacture consent. And you'll see that when I get to the video about Larry Fink. These are people that for years didn't care about our pockets, didn't care about our kitchen table issues. They were concerned about raising money for the military industrial complex. They were concerned about killing people abroad. They were concerned about protecting and saving Wall Street. They weren't concerned about us when we lost homes in the '08 housing crisis. They're not concerned about us right now. So I find it very hard to believe that now all of a sudden, all these rich people who are rubbing elbows with each other now all of a sudden want to take care of the everyday working American. So get ready for it, because you're going to start to hear more people and more politicians as well. They're going to use that rhetoric, but they don't intend to actually do anything about it.
On any other nation, and if you're going to be dependent on someone, it darn well better be your best allies, okay? And so that is a different way of thinking. It is completely different than the WEF. I viewed the WEF as not a flagpole in the middle, but in fact, they are the flag. Whichever way the wind blew, so it blew. You should have solar, you should have wind. Why are you going to do solar and wind? Why would Europe agree to be net zero in 2030 when they don't make a battery? They don't make a battery. So if they go 2030, they are deciding to be subservient to China, who makes the batteries.
Of course, had to bring China into this as well. Again, he says he's focused on America first, but he's also talking about what Europe is going to do. So he has an issue with what Europe is doing, but he's telling you that he's America first. Right now, let's get to this part here about Larry Fink. Again, Larry Fink is the CEO of BlackRock, another corrupt company. We've talked about them multiple times before on this show. He also is trying to play into this. He's talking about global elites, this problem with global elites. All of a sudden, this billionaire all of a sudden has a problem with global elites. Listen to this.
We believe that outside the United Nations, this is the largest gathering of global leadership of the post-COVID period of time. For many people, this meeting feels out of step with the moment. We hear all about the elites. And how does that play out in an age of populism? How does an established institution make a difference in an era of deep institutional mistrust? And there's some truth to the critique. I believe in this forum for a long time. I certainly wouldn't be leading this if I didn't believe that we can change and make the world better. But it's also obvious that the world now places far less trust in us to help shape what comes next. If the World Economic Forum is going to be useful going forward, it has to regain that trust.
So he's talking about global elites, right? So you see what they're starting to do? They're trying to make you think, okay, we hear where you're coming from. We hear you. But Larry Fink is a global elite. Larry Fink going to say, you know what? I don't think it's right for me to be a billionaire anymore. I'm actually going to pay workers what they're owed, and I'm not going to be a billionaire anymore. I'm going to give my wealth. I'm going to distribute my wealth in such a way so that I am no longer a billionaire. No, of course, he's not going to do that. So if you have critique of global elites, he would obviously start with himself. But he doesn't want to do that. This is how you know they're not serious. It's just like they're just repeating the rhetoric that they're hearing, because the reality is they know that America is on the decline. They know it. And honestly, they probably knew it before we did. And they've been trying to convince us that it's the exact opposite. And they can't do that anymore. So now they're using our rhetoric. Here's another clip of him here. Larry Fink said at the WEF that the main objective of the WEF is to expose the public to a broad range of voices and ideas. So now all of a sudden, he wants people to hear different voices and different ideas.
That's the goal of this year's World Economic Forum at Davos, to expose people to wider ranges of voices, to a wider range of ideas, maybe even an argument, but one that we have deeper understanding from. And I think not all of it's going to sound as good as the one that you've enjoyed at that moment, like in music. And like in music, you're not going to agree with everything. But if you're willing to listen, it might leave something with you inside. It might stay with you. And maybe you will evolve and be better for it. And that's the mission of the World Economic Forum this week in Davos.
So all these years that they've had the World Economic Forum with billionaires and these political leaders, now all of a sudden, Larry Fink thinks, well, we should probably hear from other voices. Like, it's just crazy. For years, these people have gotten together and they have decided what our future is going to be. They never cared about hearing from other voices before, but now all of a sudden it's let's hear from other people. You know, maybe there is a problem with these global elites, but you're a part of the globe. You're the global elite. It's not us. We're not at Davos. We're not there. They are watching us. They are paying attention to what we have been saying. Now, let me tell you something else that came up that is very important. They have moved away from focusing so much on climate change, and now they've directed their sights towards artificial intelligence. And I think this is what a big part of this is about. Listen to something else he said there.
The world is going to be short power. Short power. And to power these data companies, you cannot have just this intermittent power like wind and solar. You need dispatchable power because you can't turn off and on these data centers.
So did everybody hear what he said? The world is going to be short power. This is why they're focusing so much on energy. And if the world is short power, we're not going to be able to power those data centers. Notice what he does not say. He doesn't say the world is going to be short power. And if the world's short power, then people aren't going to be able to power their homes. No. So here's my prediction. Get ready for something like this. Don't know if it'll happen during our lifetime, but just follow me here. If the world becomes short of power, as Larry Fink said, who do you think they're going to prioritize the power for? It won't be for us. Don't be surprised if at some point we have to ration electricity, meaning that only a certain amount of electricity could be used at homes, and the majority would be used to power these big, giant data centers, which I would argue they don't need. We've gone all our lives without these data centers. Now, all of a sudden, they need data centers, and they need them because they want to advance and increase artificial intelligence. What I am telling you is that they are going to put more energy and resources into artificial intelligence than they will put into us, because they can get to the point where they will use artificial intelligence to do some of the things that we currently do. He's putting it all out there on the table for you and letting you know right now. We need more power and energy, not so that people can power their homes or their apartments or their businesses, but so we can power these data centers that they continue to build all across the world, not just the United States. That's also why they want Greenland. It's not just because of the minerals and resources there. It's also because they want to put another data center there. These are the people. And that's why I keep telling you guys, and people don't agree with everything, and that's fine. But I keep telling you guys, at the end of the day, it's us against them. Us against them. I want to show you this new idea they're proposing at the WEF. In Davos, there's a launch of a new social media platform called W. Everyone, write that down. Let's remember this when this social media platform is released, because we don't need to sign up for it. This new social media platform called W, to counter the misinformation on other social media platforms. Here's part of the introductory video at the debut event. Listen to this. They tout actual verification and no bots and being hosted on European servers. So this is what they're planning, folks. This is why I say keep your enemies close. So it says here, let me mute this because it has the music there. Something is broken. We no longer trust what we see online. Our feeds are not built for people, but for power, money, and manipulation. So let's just play this here. Children grow up in noise. Foreign interests shape what we see. We are tracked, profiled, and manipulated by algorithms and AI. Authenticity is fading. Yet, we all want the same thing: real people, real conversations. So I'm going to tell you what they mean by this in just a second. That's why we're building W, a social network where people come before algorithms and where free speech and privacy are real. First of all, we all know that it's not going to be pro-free speech, but essentially it's just another way for them to manipulate and to manufacture consent. So they're going to tell you there's no algorithm, there's no, AI. It's just real people and real information. But if you believe that at some point there's not someone behind the curtain that is going to determine and decide what is a part of that platform and what you can post on that platform, you are sadly mistaken. The fact that they're promoting it at the WEF is a big red flag that is not something that you should sign up for. We are not going to trust the elites and this platform that they want to create. Now, can you trust any of the social media platforms? No. But for them to pretend like this is going to be something different is not. It's just going to be what they want you to see. They're already getting ready to do it. And whatever they decide to be misinformation is going to be misinformation. Doesn't mean it's actually true. We go on to President Macron, who, for some crazy reason, decided to show up at the World Economic Forum wearing sunglasses. I don't know if he thought he was the guy that sings that song, I Wear My Sunglasses at Night. What's that guy's name? Corey Hart or something like that? I wear my sunglasses at night so I can. I don't know what's going on. We're in a cartoon. The world is a clown show. But Macron here is speaking out apparently against these actions that have happened by Donald Trump. Listen to this.
We are reaching a time of instability, of imbalances, both from the security and defense point of view and the economic point of view. Look at the situation where we are. I mean, a shift towards autocracy against democracy, more violence, more than 60 wars in 2024, an absolute record, even if I understood a few of them were fixed. And conflict has become normalized, hybrid, expanding into new domains, space, digital, information, cyber, trade, and so on. It's as well a shift towards a world without rules, where international law is trampled underfoot, and where the only law that seems to matter is that of the strongest, and imperial ambitions are resurfacing. Obviously, the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, which will enter into its 4th year next month, and conflicts continue in the Middle East and across Africa.
So he's calling out the wars that are happening right now. But we got to add this. You know, France contributed to these wars. They gave weapons and aid to Israel. I believe they also gave weapons and aid to Ukraine. It's not like they weren't a part of this. He's talking about it as if he had nothing to do with this. You went right along with it with the United States. You know, I don't know if the sunglasses are getting to him or what, but it's wild. This is laughable to me.
As well a shift towards a world without effective collective governance, and where multilateralism is weakened by powers that obstruct it or turn away from it, and rules are undermined. And I can multiply the examples of international bodies weakened or left by the key economies.
So I think some of this also has to do with the message that Donald Trump put out recently, that he wants to put tariffs on when one of those countries is France, all of the European countries that are against him trying to steal Greenland. So Macron has voiced frustration about that, and so has other leaders, including the leader of Norway, Canada as well. We're going to get to him in just a second. But the sunglasses are just cracking me up there. I don't know. Like, it's just like I wear my sunglasses at night so I can. I don't know anyone that wears sunglasses at night unless you're trying to cover something up. Now we get to the Canadian Prime Minister here as well. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney told the WEF at Davos that the U.S.-led rules-based international order is finished and will not return. Let's get into this video here. It's wild and crazy in these streets.
It seems that every day we're reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry, that the rules-based order is fading, that the strong can do what they can and the weak must suffer what they must. And this aphorism of Thucydides is presented as inevitable, as the natural logic of international relations reasserting itself.
So he's not calling out names. And my thing is like, name names. The strong, he means the United States and Israel. The weak, the countries that are bullied by the United States and Israel. And I would go, obviously a step further to say, of course, like Gaza, the West Bank, Venezuela, all these countries, and or Gaza is not a country, but all these countries and all these people that are bullied by the West, basically, right? So he's also pissed at Donald Trump too because of this Greenland situation. And he feels as though, I also read that Canada feels as though if anything, Greenland should be, belong to them and not the United States, but they also feel like Greenland should be left alone. So there's a lot of things that are going on right now, folks.
And faced with this logic, there is a strong tendency for countries to go along to get along, to accommodate, to avoid trouble, to hope that compliance will buy safety. Well, it won't. So what are our options? In 1978, the Czech dissident Václav Havel, later president, wrote an essay called The Power of the Powerless. And in it, he asked a simple question: how did the communist system sustain itself? And his answer began with a greengrocer. Every morning, this shopkeeper places a sign in his window: "Workers of the world unite." He doesn't believe it. No one does. But he places the sign anyway to avoid trouble, to signal compliance, to get along. And because every shopkeeper on every street does the same, the system persists. Not through violence alone, but through the participation of ordinary people in rituals they privately know to be false. Havel called this living within a lie. The system's power comes not from its truth, but from everyone's willingness to perform as if it were true. And its fragility comes from the same source. When even one person stops performing, when the greengrocer removes his sign, the illusion begins to crack.
But you've been a part of the same performance. I mean, Canada has gone along with the United States, in lockstep through all of these interventions, through all of this type of global domination. You have been right there along with us to go along with it. And now all of a sudden he's trying to pretend like he's the I don't know, like he's the high and mighty here. I'm taking the high road kind of guy, when you've been a part of all of this that he's complaining about, this world order.
Friends, it is time for companies and countries to take their signs down. For decades, countries like Canada prospered under what we called the rules-based international order. We joined its institutions, we praised its principles, we benefited from its predictability. And because of that, we could pursue values-based foreign policies under its protection. We knew the story of the international rules-based order was partially false, that the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient, that trade rules were enforced asymmetrically. And we knew that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the accused or the victim. This fiction was useful. And American hegemony in particular helped provide public goods, open sea lanes, a stable financial system, collective security, and support for frameworks for resolving disputes.
And he went along with all of that. I'm not going to play the entire thing here, but basically what you're seeing is they're saying the things that we have been complaining about for quite some time. And so they want us to think that we hear you, we see you. And Canada now, I guess he's making this grand stance because he's pissed about the whole Greenland situation. But had it not been for the Greenland situation, he wouldn't even be giving the speech that he's giving now. But the reality is, until I see any of these leaders, these countries, whether it's France, whether it's Canada, et cetera, push back and tell the United States government, F you, we're going to focus on what's good for our country, I just kind of see this as a trap. they want us to think that they understand us and they see what we're complaining about. But you don't see any policy being put forth to stop what they're doing. You know, as long as they're still funding the military industrial complex, as long as they're still going along with these things, then you know that they're not serious. So we have to be very careful that we don't fall for this trap, because I think what they're going to try to do is that they're going to use they're already starting to use our rhetoric. Politicians who are running, this is midterm season, and then you'll have 2028 presidential election. They're going to use the rhetoric that they know we want to hear, the populist rhetoric. But they don't plan on doing those things. It's just another way. They're just going to find a different way to manufacture consent, where they convince us that they're with us, but they're really not. They're laughing behind closed doors and say, I can't believe they fell for it. It actually worked, right? Because check this out. You know who was not there? The Iranian foreign minister will not be attending Davos, although he was invited last fall. The tragic loss of lives in civilians in Iran over the past few weeks means that it is not right for the Iranian government to be represented at Davos this year. That came from the World Economic Forum. So Iran was uninvited. However, look who was invited. Israeli President Herzog en route to Switzerland to take part in the WEF. Iranian FM presence was canceled, allegedly because of violence in the country, while Israel openly killed babies on a daily. You can see there's the plane here leaving from Israel to head to Davos. So it's laughable at this point in time. So the World Economic Forum will be continuing for a couple of days. I'll continue to keep up with that information. But if you're not watching some of those clips, they're on Twitter, you can check them out there. If you're not watching some of those, definitely check them out, because like I said, I want to know what they're doing. I want to know what they're saying. And these are just the things that they're letting us hear. We still don't get to hear the things that they say behind closed doors, the other plans that they have that they'll never let us hear. But the things that they put out there, you know, they're just basically planning our lives and our future without our consent. These are the people that are making these powerful decisions, the billionaire class. And none of us are invited to have a seat at that table. So I say, you know, somebody's watching me. They're watching us. They're watching, they're listening. You never know who is watching. And someone told me this recently. They said, you never know who is watching you, who is watching any of these other podcasters, who's reading some of these tweets that, you know, podcasters have online, et cetera, independent journalists. You never know. So pay close attention, because they're already on their way to try to manufacture a different type of consent. Let's see that poll. All right. How do you feel about the World Economic Forum? We have 2,712 votes. 4% say I support it. 72% say I'm against it. 11% say, what is the World Economic Forum? And 14% say, I'm not sure. Okay, so most people knew what it was. That's what I was curious to see. Interesting. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.